Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. Now what we're going to do today is take this HD 7970, which I got off eBay for 20 euros, and we're gonna try to diagnose what is wrong with this. So this was described as dead. The exact description I think was no video out. So yeah. And basically what I want to do with this video is kind of go through my troubleshooting process on like first diagnosing the problem, and then maybe there'll be a video of fixing the problem later, depending on how, like, if it's a really easy fix, I might not bother to make a video. If it's like an interesting thing to fix the thing, if I even can fix it, there are things I can't fix. Yeah, there might be a video, but this is just gonna be the diagnosis. And this is the first of two HD 7970s. There's gonna be another one that isn't here yet, but this just arrived. And yeah, so because there is that video of where I kind of go through yeah, what kind of steps you can take to diagnose a graphics card, but that was on a card that was working. This one is new. I don't know what is wrong with this. I have not tried to turn this on, because when you don't know what's wrong with it, you shouldn't turn something on, because it might have a short and you might make the problem even worse. So before you turn anything on that you don't know what is wrong with it, first you want to get your multimeter, and then you want to measure a lot of things on the card. But the very first thing here is we're gonna remove the heatsink for the card. This is also a sort of interesting card, because this might look like a reference PCB, but it is actually not. If you can see, the inductors are not going through the PCB, so this does not have the reference inductors, and also this section looks different. So this is gonna be a PCB, I don't entirely know. Oh, this thing is dusty. And the thermal paste on this looks really bad. Alright. What is that? There's a thermal pad on there, but there's no contact plate. Huh. Well, anyway. Yeah, this is a custom PCB. Oh, and it has push pins. Yeah, I'm going to need to get my pliers to get this off, because you do want to take a look at the VRM. Our controller is still a CHL822G. Sadly, there's no I2C port here. But this is still a fairly normal HD 7970. We have MFR memory chips. This is gonna be a really old one. Okay, but I'm gonna get my pliers first, because we do want to get that heatsink off, because we do want to look at the VRM. It's not really necessarily needed, but I just want to look at the PCB. Like, sometimes you have physical damage, and then you can just identify the problem before you put some time into measuring. So I do want to take this heatsink off. So I'm gonna get my pliers real quick. The good thing is, these don't really look like they've been compressed before. So I think I'm the first person to take this card apart, which is a good thing, because sometimes you get cards that have been messed with already, and well, if the card is still dead and for sale on eBay, that person probably didn't succeed in whatever they were trying. So let's be careful to not break whatever thermal pad is under there. Wow, this is really... Ah. Okay, we have some direct feds. That is... yeah, that looks more like a 7970 reference PCB, because I do technically have a 7970-ish reference PCB, which is actually a 280X, which is a rebranded 7970, but that one was using a PCB that's... okay, I'm not netting. This thermal pad does not want to come off, and I will destroy it. But the VRM looks good. Mostly. If anything's wrong with it, we will surely see it in the measurements. So yeah, so this being an AMD card, it has three main VRMs, however there are also other minor rails, and we want to measure all of them. So we're gonna set our multimeter into resistance mode. But before we measure any VRM outputs, we first wanna test our main power inputs. So our 3 12-volt sources and our 3.3-volt source. So we want to connect one probe to ground. I just always use the I/O sheet because that's always ground. Wait, actually let's set it into beep mode. So if we have a short, it's gonna beep continuously like this. So if I now touch something that's connected to ground, it beeps. So actually let's put the card like this. And let's take the 12-volt input pins. Okay, a short beep is okay. But we do not have a short here. Okay, our 6-pin is also okay. Let's check our PCI Express slot then. You can measure directly from the pins, but I usually like to use the capacitors. That's not shorted, and our 3.3 volts, which should be this, it's also not shorted. Okay, we have no short circuits on our inputs. So, yeah. And, well, now we can no longer use beep mode because VRM outputs usually have a very low resistance, and at least my multimeter detects all of them as shorts. So we do want to set into resistance mode. And actually I don't know if this phase or this phase is memory. I've seen both. So I guess the measurement, resistance measurement will tell us. So now we just connect one to the metal part of the inductor. That looks like core. That's too low to be memory, so I guess the upper phase here is memory. Yes it is, that looks like memory. Yeah, like depending on what memory configuration you have. We have a 384-bit memory configuration here. Yeah, those usually have like 50 to 100 ohms, so 60 is completely okay. Cores depends on which GPU core you have. This one, I have a different card that has 3.3 ohms, so this at 3.6 is completely okay. And let's test VDDCI. That looks okay to me. I don't know exact values off the top of my head, but that looks like that's obviously not a short, not a dead short. Dead short would be this, 0 ohms, or like 0.1, because my multimeter doesn't go lower. It's not that expensive. Okay. This right here should be the 1.8 volt rail. And this has a higher resistance than 200 ohms. Let's go a bit higher. 280 ohms. I don't know typical resistances for 1.8 volts, but that looks still fine. Okay, and then our last voltage rail, which is here on the back on this card, which is the PEX rail or display drive rail or PLL rail, depending on what manufacturer you're looking at. And that also looks okay. Yeah, 240 ohms. That looks okay. Alright, so we couldn't find any shorts on this. Not on the inputs, not on the outputs. There is a low dropout regulator here. I guess this is connected to 12 volts PCIe. I just don't know which side. Okay, this is connected to 12 volts. And then one side is gonna be ground. Which side is gone? Okay, the middle side seems to be ground. And then the left side should be our 5 volts output. That doesn't look like it's shorted. Yeah, that seems to have a very high resistance. Yeah, like that's a bunch of kilo ohms. So that's not shorted as well. That should be the 5 volt low dropout regulator that is used to drive the MOSFETs. Yeah, so there's another inductor over here. I suspect this is input filtering for PCI Express, and these two should be input filtering for the 8-pin and 6-pin. So, and then that, actually is that the BIOS chip? Yeah, that's gotta be the BIOS chip, because this card is dual BIOS and right on the back there's another one. Because you can see that as a switch, so this has dual BIOS. So that's gotta be the BIOS chips. I do not know what this chip does. Oh no, yeah, never mind. Yeah, that's the controller for the PEX rail. Okay, I do know what this chip does. So, we have checked everything on the card. So now, because we haven't found a dead short circuit, this diagnosis video just got a lot more interesting, because now we would turn the card on. Usually I would have actually expected to have a solution by now, but as we couldn't find anything shorted, we will now turn the card on. And well, I bought a 280X that had a description of the exact same problem, not displaying a picture, and I turned it on and it just worked. And I have heard reports of a lot of cards just not displaying an image on certain platforms, so this card might actually be completely fine. Or it might have a problem where one of the rails isn't shorted but doesn't run. In which case we would turn the card on and measure the voltages that we're getting. I'm going to clean the thermal paste off of the core, and then we are going to turn the card on, basically, and test for voltages. So I now have the card inside my test bench. I have plugged in the power cables. It is it has a display cable in it, because the first test I want to do is does the GPU get hot test. So I'm literally just going to hold my finger to the GPU, which is why I cleaned it off, and test if it gets warm, because if the GPU gets warm, that means our vCore rail is running, and we do want to know that, because, well, if it's running, that's one part of our diagnosis that we can take off, because now we know that vCore is working. But also, if vCore is working, the GPU is getting power, it's getting hot, and if we don't put any sort of heatsink on that while we are measuring the voltages, that thing can overheat quite significantly, potentially causing damage to the card, like further damage to the card. And so I do want to test if the GPU gets hot first before we use our multimeter here to measure any voltages. So I'm gonna turn it on now. And it does get slightly warm. It's not really getting... Oh, no, now it's getting really hot. Postcode is on B2. Yeah, this is getting really hot. So vCore is working. It was stuck on B2, which I'm just gonna flip the BIOS switch once and see what happens. But I do think I wanna get some... Well, I don't really have anything here right now, so I guess my thumb will have to go through that again. It was getting really, really hot suddenly. Maybe this is just a BIOS issue. Maybe someone flashed the BIOS on this that didn't work. Oh, this is getting really damn hot. Shit. Still stuck on B2, you can see that down there. Oh yeah. Yeah, I can't... I can't keep that on for longer. Okay, that is a bit annoying now. Because we do need a heatsink on that GPU. To do our measurements. The problem is, these cards specifically are very annoying to put a custom heatsink on, and if we use the stock heatsink, we can't really access any of the elements here to measure the voltage. So I'm gonna look for something to put on there, and then we're going to continue with our measurement. Right, I have now removed the metal shim around this GPU so that I can mount a flat cold plate cooler on it, and I did mount my water cooling block on it, so the GPU is getting as cold as it can basically be with my equipment, and we still get access to the GPU to do our measurements. So the black probe of the multimeter is connected to ground, and we're just going to take the red probe to measure our voltage. Let's turn the thing on again. You can see the postcode down there. I'm first gonna wait a little bit. Maybe it goes past B2, because some cards just take a while and I couldn't really hold on to that hot GPU for a while. But yeah, it seems to be stuck there. So let's try our first measurement. So we're gonna test memory voltage. Memory voltage is okay and at the level we want. So 1.6 volts is GDDR5 spec, and this is at the VRM. You always have a slightly higher voltage at the VRM because there's a voltage drop from VRM to core. Core, as we already know, is running at around 1 volt, which is standard for these cards. Now let's test VDDCI. That should be at around 900 millivolts, I think. Yep, 900 millivolts. Test the PEX rail on the back. That should be similar to VDDCI, also at around 900 millivolts. Yep, 1 volt. Okay, slightly higher than that. And then our last voltage, which would be the 5 volt regulator. I mean, it has to be running because the MOSFETs are running, so yeah, we have 5 volts. Oh wait, I haven't tested 1.8 volt. That's the last one. Maybe that's our culprit. Because if this is running, yeah, we have potentially a corrupt BIOS or a dead GPU. And that would be, the last part would be very, very bad. A corrupt BIOS I can maybe fix, but a dead GPU is, well, at that point the card is basically parts. So how do I get onto next in that? Okay, I'm gonna remove these fans over here. So I can get in from here. Wait, how is this? We have 1.8 volt. Okay. So, board level wise, this card is completely functional. Sadly, my screen is black and we are stuck at B2 postcode. I am gonna try flipping the BIOS switch once more. Maybe that will do something. I was well, I was kinda hoping that there would be a VRM side defect on this. But yeah, like there's no physical damage that I noticed, and all the rails are doing what they should be. Next step would potentially be trying out different PCI Express slots. Sometimes cards don't like to boot in the top slot, though I've never really seen it with this card. And being stuck at B2 is something I think that 290X's did. And yeah, like apparently that's not fixable. VRAM's not getting hot. Yeah, that's not looking like it's gonna boot. So I'm gonna be swapping the card to the lower PCI Express slot. If that doesn't work, I'm gonna try the third one as well. Also, one thing I noticed, this card is really bent. Like, you see that? How like it's bending down here? So that this card had a pretty rough life. Okay. Maybe we see some life now. This method does work with some NVIDIA cards I have. Like some of my NVIDIA cards, you just kind of have to plug them into the 8X slot and then they work. But we seem to be stuck at B2 again. That is very unfortunate. Like, I mean, B2 postcode means that the card is not initializing in the right way. Like, the board is detecting the card is there. If the card wouldn't get detected, it would just boot normally, but the debug LED for our GPU would stay on. but this is just getting stuck at B2. So, okay, let's try the very last slot, because as far as I know, my 8X slot is still on the CPU lanes, and sometimes cards sometimes you get better compatibility with cards that have boot issues if you run them off the PCI Express slot and not from the CPU lanes. So now we're gonna try the very last slot to see if it will maybe initialize. We are sadly covering up the postcode. I should be able to kind of see it from the side, but the camera will be... Oh, well, actually, you can see it down there. That's good. Okay, that's plugged in. One more try. Now we're getting B2 again. Oh, no, something happened. I'm not seeing a picture, but the GPU light is off. Yes, the monitor is saying no signal, but we didn't get stuck at B2. Okay. What if I reset the system? Sometimes it's actually the monitor not detecting the signal properly. So we are at B2. And here we go. I do just wonder if you're gonna see a picture. Maybe it's also just the HDMI port on this thing that's damaged. That could be a thing. I had a 980 Ti that had a damaged HDMI port. Okay, I'm gonna shut down the system and I'm gonna try the DVI cable. This is very annoying to attach right back here. I can't actually see what I'm doing. This feels like it's in. But if it's booting now, like it's booting to Windows now, one more thing we could try is just put a different card in the system and see if it shows up in Device Manager. I'm still not getting a signal according to the monitor. Nope. Alright, let's grab a different card. Try to boot that one. Do I have a candidate? I do have a candidate. Remember this thing? Now it's gonna be useful. Okay, power. Wait, is that in? No, it's in. Connect HDMI again. Okay. So now we're booting the system off of this GTX 560. And we're gonna... Well, I'm getting a picture right now, of course, because that card is working. Okay, Windows is kind of upset that we shut down the system and booting for a couple times. I'm gonna go into Windows. I can't really position the camera to show it, but I'm gonna go into Windows, I'm gonna go into Device Manager, and also into GPU-Z and check if our HD7970 shows up, and what it's reporting should it show up. It kind of has a problem right now because it doesn't have the drivers for this card loaded just yet. So we're gonna have to give it a while to load the driver. In the meantime, actually, I don't know if it shows up in Device Manager. Let's just check. We have a GTX 560 showing up. That has an error because there's no driver installed. We do not have a 7970 showing up. That might be because there's no AMD drivers on this system. So we're now restarting the system to initialize the driver for this boy. And if the driver's running, well, it might still not show up in Device Manager because I'm running Windows 7 on this, and Windows 7 likes to have driver issues. However, it should show up in GPU-Z. And if that doesn't help, if it doesn't show up, I'm gonna get my Windows 10 drive and install it in here and see if it does that. Okay, Device Manager, display adapters. Okay, we just have a GTX 560. That's not good. Let's check GPU-Z. We also just have a GTX 560 in GPU-Z. Okay, so our card is not getting detected by Windows 7. I am gonna shut the thing down. Now that I'm still okay. And now I'm going to disconnect the Windows 7 boot drive, and I'm gonna get my Windows 10 drive, install that, and boot off that. But I'm gonna do that off camera. So we now have that M.2 drive there installed, which has Windows 10 on it. Windows 7 drive is disconnected. It should just boot into Windows 10. Hopefully. Yep, we're booting into Windows 10. Even has the driver loaded, that's great. And no, it doesn't have the driver loaded. Interesting, I thought it... Well, the loading screen had a resolution where I thought it would have the driver loaded. But it's initializing the driver right now. Yep, there we are. Let's check GPU-Z on Windows 10. We only have a GTX 560. That is very not good. Let's check Device Manager. Also only has a... It lists an unknown device. But yeah, only a GTX 560 on the display adapters. So... that's not good. One last thing we're gonna try, but I don't think it will help very much. Sometimes I had problems with cards when PCI Express was at 3.0, and reducing PCI Express to version 2.0 actually helped. For example, my GTX 590 only runs if I manually set PCI Express to 2.0. So I'm gonna go into BIOS and do that right now. I would just remember where the setting was. Yeah, I do not remember where this was. This might take a while. Yeah, I'm just gonna stop the recording until I find it and change it. I found the setting. It's at 2.0 now. Maybe that will help the card initialize. I might also have to move it to a different slot again, because I don't know if it affects the chipset slots as well. No, it's not getting detected. Alright. We are gonna move it up one then. And see if that does something. So as for what the actual problem on this is, I'm 50-50 between corrupt BIOS. However, it's very unlikely that both BIOS chips get corrupted at the same time. Which is why I'm also strongly leaning towards this just has a dead GPU, and there's not really anything we can do about it, because the GPU is the most valuable part of this entire card, and if the GPU is dead, then this is essentially, yeah, just parts. Might be convertible into an E-Power, but I don't really... okay, we don't hang on B2 now. However, our GPU debug light is... no, it's off now. We are getting a picture, but we're still plugged into the 560. It doesn't hang now. It didn't do that before. However, that might just be because we have a second card now. Okay, Windows booted, but lost display out. That's interesting. No signal. Okay. Windows is having a bit of a problem. I'm gonna try to just plug into this card directly, and we're gonna... I said we're gonna... ah, no, the system seems to have crashed. We're not changing postcode. Okay, this option then. And let's see. If it hangs now on B2, that's just because we were using like a different card. However, the system might try to boot off the first card because it has like the top user express slot set as the usual, like initial display output. So... oh no, we're passing B2 very fast now. Okay, it's booted, but I don't see a picture. Alright. This card out and just try the 7970. If it hangs on B2 now, that was just the 560 booting every time. Yeah, that kinda looks like it was just the 560. That's a bummer. That's a real bummer, because this, yeah, it might be, like, because, this is what the card should be. This is what it does. I've heard of cards, specifically AMD cards, not booting when they're, like, bent. But, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. So, I'm not sure if this will boot at this point. What I am gonna try is to run mats on this. So mats is a little utility. It's a DOS environment, I think, that you can boot into, and it does a couple tests on your graphics card and then gives you a like, you run it off a USB stick, and to that USB stick it writes a report of errors found, or if everything's okay. I am gonna try to boot that in here. However, I do not know if that is gonna prevent us from running it. So yeah, and what I have to do is first plug a working card in again, select that USB stick as the boot option, then power down, take the other card out so it doesn't test that one, and then, yeah, well, yeah, I'm gonna do some more testing off camera now, because this is just repeating stuff at this point. I'm gonna try to run mats on it, and I'm either gonna not be able to, or I'm gonna come back with some results on this. Yeah, so we'll see each other then. So, I was not able to get mats running on this, so it just doesn't initialize. And if I have a different card in the system, it always runs mats on that one. So, yeah, I guess we won't get a report of Matt's test on this card. There's still a few things we can do. We can test if the BIOS chip actually gets power. I think it's just straight up to 3.3 volts, but we could always check if the BIOS chips get power, because if they don't, that's our problem. And one other thing we can also check is by checking the resistances of the PCI Express data pins, you can sometimes see if the GPU is good or bad. I am gonna do that test. Yeah, like if I find something, there'll be another part. However, we are now reaching the point where my knowledge kind of ends. And yeah, so it's gonna be a sort of difficult, longer project to fix this card, and I might just decide to turn it into an e-power or use it for other things. Because yeah, at this point it's getting into territory where I don't really know what to do. Like, I'm gonna do those last couple checks. If I find nothing, I guess this is the end of the video. If I find something, there'll be another part. But yeah, it didn't go as well as I thought. I was really hoping we would get like, hey, there's a short there, or like, hey, this rail isn't running, let's fix that. But yeah, can't win them all. This one seems to have a very difficult to diagnose problem, at least for someone with my knowledge. So yeah, yeah, so if this is the end of the video, I guess thanks for watching. If it's not, well, we're gonna see each other again. So this is a bit weird now. This is now a day later, and you can see the card is in the system. It's booted, it's overclocked, and it's running just fine. So yeah. As to why there's no real explanation as to why this works, well, the thing is basically this. After I was done filming the video, I thought, well, it's essentially finished. I took the card apart and like took some more time and really closely looked at the PCB, and I did find out that there was actually on the GPU substrate, there was a little SMD capacitor that was actually missing. So I was 100% positive that, yep, that's probably for signal integrity and could be for like communication with the PCI Express slot, or like the display drives, like something important. And if that capacitor is missing, just like when you have a missing capacitor on the PCI Express slot, your card sometimes doesn't get detected. So I was very, very sure that this is why the card wasn't getting detected. And I did try to solder a new capacitor on there. Sadly, even with the smallest iron tip I had on my hot air station, I was just not able to solder a capacitor to that. So I was basically saying, okay, I'm just gonna wash this to like, it was pretty dusty. I'm just gonna wash this to make it look a bit good, and then I'm just gonna hang it on my wall, and then maybe one day when I have better soldering equipment, I'm gonna try to solder that capacitor back on to potentially get a better card. Or I was also thinking about turning it into an e-power. However, given that it's just a missing capacitor, I was like, this card is probably too close to being fixable to turn it to an e-power. And after I had washed it, I was, okay, I wanna verify that the PCB didn't take damage in the washing process, so I went to turn it on again to measure if all the VRMs still work. And what I noticed is that the postcode wasn't showing B2, and the debug LED for GPU, which is the bottom left one of these 4 LEDs down there, it wasn't on. I looked to the left and saw the Windows loading screen, and I was just, my exact words were, no fucking way. Yeah, I have heard of this being a thing. Sometimes just a little bit of dirt or corrosion on the PCB can make the card not work. And even though that capacitor is still missing on the GPU, it just runs fine. It was just corrosion on the PCB, something so simple I didn't even think about it. Yeah, so like I don't have 100% definite proof that it was corrosion on the PCB, but the thing is, I did not replace that capacitor, and the only thing I did after it didn't work last time was wash it. So it had to be the cleaning process, and well, I did hear that sometimes you can have a little bit of dust or corrosion or something on the contacts of something on the card, and that makes it not work. And after I cleaned it, it works. It now works. One other reason that is possible, however I think unlikely, as to why it works now, is the last card I had booted in this is actually Salty's 280X. Because I was able to like remove the DRM heatsinks that are on it, and I went to test it. However, I didn't have enough time to fully test it. I just turned it on and saw if it was working, then I powered down the test bench. And then was today, and I wanted to check if that card has like all the VRMs still working. So I took that card out, put this one in. These two cards, even though once is called a 7970, the other is called a 280X, these are essentially the same. The thing is, when I booted this card for the first time, I had an NVIDIA card in it previously. Sometimes I had that happen on my old, on the old test bench motherboard, which is the X370 Gaming K7. I had that happen with GTX 580s. Sometimes specific GTX 580s wouldn't get detected if you didn't run a GTX 580 previously in the system. If you would run a different GTX 580 that always works in the system, then put the MSI, it was specifically a Lightning GTX 580, you run a working 580 in the system before, then plug the Lightning in, it would always work. But if you have whatever GPU in the system, then put the Lightning in, sometimes it wouldn't get detected. Maybe this is the reason, which would mean that the card was working the entire time and I just ran into issues where it wasn't getting properly detected. However, I think that is very unlikely. First, because it was only on GTX 580s previously, this is a very different card, and that issue did only occur for a very, very short amount of time and then disappeared forever. And this is also a completely different motherboard on a completely different platform. So I am basically ruling that out, though I don't want to mention because it is kind of similar as to the symptoms. So, yeah, this is not how I expected this video to end. It is a happier ending than what I had previously, but well, I didn't really do anything except wash it, and it works. So this is, yeah, there was really no repair process. It was just wash it. And I don't just wash GPUs to repair them. It's just sometimes the card is dirty and I just wash it. And if you're now asking yourself, I wash my cards just with tap water and a toothbrush. That's how I do it. It's not the most elegant way to do it. Someone actually complained in the comments that no, you shouldn't do this. Yes, the proper way to clean a card would be isopropyl alcohol, or just get a sonic, ultrasonic cleaner in like that. They are quite expensive, but if you have one, that's the most proper way to do it. I've cleaned cards with tap water, or even in the dishwasher, and none of them have died from that so far. So it's fine. Der Bauer made a video about washing things in the dishwasher. It's just fine. And the dishwasher is running on tap water, just like I like to do it manually with my hand and a toothbrush. So, yeah. I won't be wasting any more of your time now. There is not really anything to say about this card except that, yep, I washed it and it works now. Yeah, you can expect to see some content with this. It's gonna get volt modded, and it's gonna get overclocked. And this being one of the old 7970s, the really old ones, this has potentially some a really good core on it. And I mean, 1200. Well, actually, yeah, my 7970 Matrix would not run this. It needed more voltage to run 1200. And this is also running kind of hot because the heatsink on it is not really that great. But yeah, like, let's see, does it run? Also, we are not actually 1.25, we are quite a bit lower. That reading is consistent with what I get from the EVC as well, so that's probably closer to what we actually have. So let's see, does it run 1.2 volts? It seems to be. Ah, no, it doesn't. Okay, it crashed. Yeah, so could be that it's too hot, could be that the core's not all that great. But yeah, now the core's unhappy because it doesn't have enough voltage. Yeah, let's just reset that. So, that should be the end of the video. It's probably kinda long by now. And yeah, I'll see you later in a different video. Goodbye.